Hi, this is patron supporter Rich. The long international nightmare is over. The Polish guy will still be behind the Instant Speed podcast with Flake. So, get out your pocket kielbasa. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Instant Speed Podcast. This is episode number 87, brought to you by FAB Cards. Be who you want to be. This week's guest is Matt Rogers. But first, let's get to the facts, ladies and gentlemen. Well, welcome back to the Instant Speed Podcast. Yes, after a little hiatus and some rebranding, we are back. So it's great to have you. If you haven't already, I do invite you, go ahead, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, follow us wherever all of your podcasts can be heard. Spotify, Google, Apple, Space, wherever you get your vibes, plug into the Instant Speed Podcast there. Thank you so much. All right. The bans are in. The BNR announcement. Nothing for Blitz, but let's get to the hotter aspect, which is, hey, Bullseye Bracers is banned. Sorry, Lexi. Sorry, Azalea. Sorry, Riptide, I guess. Sure, we'll throw that one in there. Pulse of Eisenloft and Scaletta remain, I guess, kind of... Pulse of Eisenloft unbanned, but nothing really is out there that can use it, so waiting the next bearer of the Pulse of Eisenloft. Scaletta remains the same. Can't touch it, unfortunately. Dusk Till Dawn spoilers are completed. We've seen everything. Let's talk about the biggest, little nuggets that we can unearth from Dusk Till Dawn. The first being the fabled Light of Soul, a light gem. Pretty awesome. That is the chase card in this set. But beyond that, we've got a reprint, ladies and gentlemen. Crown of Providence is getting a reprint. So one of the most coveted headpieces that are out there. Get another chance to go ahead and grab one of those for your kit. Dusk Till Dawn pre-release events are going to be firing off for the War of the Monarch from July 7th through July 9th. So go ahead and tune into whichever LGS has got your mojo going. I will be at the Battle Hardened in Cincinnati competing in the Classic Constructed event. Probably some side events as well. Why not? I'd love to see you guys there. And that pretty much wraps it up. But hey, what about the new Instant Speed Patreon? Do you want to support the channel? Do you want to help me out here? You can do so for as little as $2 a month if you go to patreon.com/instantspeed. You can find a way that you can support Instant Speed, get some extra juice as well as some extra sauce. So check out ISP Patreon. And big announcement. I am very excited about this because this is something that I've been asked a bunch of times. Finally got off my ass to make it happen. Instant Speed merchandise is available in conjunction with Very Good Embroidery. If you guys want to take a look at that, verygoodembroidery.com/instantspeed/ISP, if I'm not mistaken. Go check it out. Shirts, hats, hoodies, the whole 9 yards. I tried to make sure that you can get these at a relatively affordable price. The quality's great. I've got this stuff as well. So check it out. If you want to rock some ISP, you can do so. So the link will be in the description of these videos. And thank you, as always, for your support and repping the ISP. All right, our guest for the revamped Instant Speed Podcast is none other than Matt Rogers. We talk about the meta. We talk about worlds and competition in TCG for LSS. And we talk about PCG Grading and FAB Slabs. He comes equipped with some hotness. So stay tuned, all this and more on ISP. The Instant Speed Podcast is proudly sponsored by FAB Cards. FAB Cards is located in Riverton, Utah, and is your total hookup for Flesh and Blood singles and sealed product. Go to kfabcards.com and find all of your TCG passions covered, from Magic, One Piece, Pokemon, and plenty more. FAB Cards is also bringing you the Battle Hardened in Salt Lake City, as well as Pokemon Regionals in the coming year. Kayfabe is life. Be who you want to be. Welcome back, friends, to the Instant Speed Podcast. It is episode number 87. Brief hiatus, a little bit of an extra, special paint job has been applied. But we're coming back pretty hot and heavy here with one of the most influential personalities in flesh and blood today. He is a multiple calling winner, a national champion, and runs PCG Grading. That would be one Matt Rogers. Matt, it's good to have you back, buddy. You're the first person back. I was thinking of who do I want on the show? James won't return my calls. Brian ignores me. I figured the best person is probably Matt Rogers. You're at least within their hemisphere of influence. So, how you doing?
No, thank you. Honored to be back. Thank you. It's really cool, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing all things considered. It's good. It's been busy, even though I haven't necessarily been out there with the podcast. Obviously, the rebrand and sort of the relaunch and everything else was something I really wanted to do and do right. So we took some time off, and I've been happy that the support is still there, which is good, especially in industry and sort of this sphere of internet influence and such. If you're kind of out of the spotlight for 2 minutes, you're basically old news, and there's always that in the back of your mind, this sort of chirping that goes on that says, dude, you're never going to get back to it. If you walk away for a week, you're pretty much done. That pressure just constantly exists. But we're here, and you didn't forget my name, which is awesome.
Very unhealthy.
Dude, you're not kidding. It is tough. It is absolutely tough. But I wouldn't trade it for the world unless it was offered, but it hasn't been offered. But yeah,
unless the world was offered. Yeah.
I mean, at the very least, we'll start with the world and move our way up. But yeah, it's good to have you here, buddy. And we've got a laundry list of things that we want to talk about, obviously. But one of the more important ones right now, I suppose, is that we just got the bans and restricted announcement, which
just got it this morning.
Well, morning for you. It literally just snuck under the rug, really, really close to when we were supposed to, start this. I think it was less than an hour ago we actually got them. Yeah. So we've had brief time to digest. Ultimately, the only thing that really is in effect here is the fact that, bullseye bracers is no longer an option for Rangers. Is this something that is super impactful? Did they hit it spot on? Did they hit the bullseye, as it were? Or is there still work left to be done to keep Alexi in check?
It was a really, really hard ban to hit something from Lexi, because if you hit 3 of a kind, the deck just dies. If you hit Rain Razors, the deck probably just dies. So, I don't think you can hit any of the 2 most powerful cards because, the deck won't completely die, but it won't be tier 1. And I think they want Ranger to have a bit of its time in the spotlight as tier 1, right? So, if I was LSS right now, I wouldn't really want to, push the deck down to tier 2. So I think that's kind of their thought process. So you can't really hit Rain Razors or 3 of a kind. So what else do you hit? And I feel like the options there is you hit Snapdragons, but then it hurts a bunch of other decks. And I don't think you want to hit Snapdragons. I think that's a pretty important card in Flesh and Blood in general. So I'd steer away from that. Or you hit Bullseye Braces, or you hit Endless Arrow. Those I think are the bans. So I think maybe they got it about right. Endless Arrow is still a little bit scary, but it's definitely a lot less scary without Bullseye Braces. So that combo is a lot harder to kind of get off in a good way. So I think it was probably a decent hit. I do still think Lex is going to be the best deck though. I think that they didn't hit it hard enough that it will really change too much. But then again, there does seem to be a few more tools in the format to deal with Lexi now as well. So it'll be really interesting.
Back when Starvo was getting big looks for bans, etc., Awakening took the hit way back when for sure. So did a lot of things. But one of the more clever, I think, bans that they hit was Autumn's Touch, which a lot of people are like, Autumn's Touch. That wasn't on anybody's radar. People were always discussing what could potentially be banned. Now, I'm not saying that Lexi is anywhere within the same stratosphere of where the power level that Starvo was in. However, these kinds of creative hits, I'm sure there were people out there who are patting themselves on the back and saying that, yeah, Bullseye Bracer is what they were going to hit. But most people are like, no, ban 3 of a kind, ban Rain Razors, and ban Endless Arrow, ban it all. I'm tired of losing to Lexi because I'm stubborn. Ultimately, though, does this kind of give you shades of those clever bans? Do you think that, banning...
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, like, banning the big cards, I feel, like you said, it's a kill shot. It's basically an execution of the deck itself. So... do you think that LSS is just afraid to outright kill a major card like that? Like say 3 of a kind or Rain Razors?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it would be wrong to do it as well. To be honest, I was kind of expecting an Autumn's Touch-esque ban. I was thinking they might ban Bolt and Shot, just because it's such an important piece, but it's not like absolutely key to the deck. But I was also worried that could also kill the deck as well. Like Bolt and Shot's pretty important. So, but yeah, I think the way they've done it with Bullseye is very similar vein. Like they want Lexi to still be tier 1. They don't want to risk killing the deck, but they want to kind of peter down the power level a little bit. And I think that's actually the same sort of thing they did with Oldhim, right? When they banned Winter's Whale, same sort of thing. They wanted it to remain tier 1, but they wanted to peter down the power level a little bit.
Yeah, you're opening up some room, I guess, for other heroes to get in there. I mean, Bullseye Bracers, you're loading an arrow, be it a Bolt and Shot or an Endless Arrow on a loop. There's definitely value associated to what that card can do, but it's not the end-all, be-all. It's not... Yeah. What, in your opinion, last question about the bans here, what slots into the handpiece now? Because I felt like Bullseye Bracers was just the automatic go-to for that particular class. Like there was nothing else that really came close. But is there any other other handpiece now that, is kind of catching your eye?
Well, definitely the one that makes the attacks deal 1 damage. What's it called? Is it the legendary arm piece?
Oh, it's not one of the Shukos, is it? No, that's a ninja.
No.
Deals 1.
No.
Oh, Shock Charmers.
Shock Charmers, yeah. So Shock Charmers is probably the go-to. Like if Lexi leans more ice now, I think, and kind of focuses on hits, which I expect it to a little bit now that Oldham's gone, then I think Shock Charmers does a really, really good job. I think that card can be crazy, right? Like some of these on hits, if you can, like some of them, Shock Charmers actually turns on. So it can get a little bit crazy.
All right, well, the price of Lexi decks now just went up about $60 purely off of this ban. So here you go. You remove a card and the price just shot up. All right, well, Dusk Till Dawn is about a week or so away. We've seen the lion's share, if not by the point of this. We're recording on Monday, the 3rd of July, here in North America. And by the time that this gets published on the Thursday, we'll probably have seen all the cards by now. But what we have seen up until now, what is catching your eye from a particular card perspective? Is there any 1 or 2 cards that you're thinking about as saying, like, this actually has me excited? This has my brain starting to turn the gears.
Yeah, a few of the shadow stuff. So the light stuff hasn't really stood out to me in a big way yet. Like Bolton got a few extra tools, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to really push him over the line. But the shadow tools have been fantastic. Like Levia has gotten, I mean, to be honest, like one of my favorite cards is literally my spoiler card. Like I think that Spoiled Skull does a lot for Levia. And yeah, like a lot of the shadow cards are really powerful. Like these new transformative 13 life heroes. When you get down, and then Vincent has some really cool stuff. Like Vincent is looking really kind of mid-rangey, which is how I like to play the game, right? So I could definitely see myself slinging a bit here and there with this. And then I think my favorite spoiler card right now is also another thing entirely. Is this new axe? So the axe for warrior that kind of I think allows some semblance of like some form of mid-rangey control warrior with the axe that isn't super focused on the weapon. So kind of the closest thing to swinging Oldham's hammer, right? That's this decimator great axe. It's really interesting because this card is just so hard to keep under control. You're going to be constantly leaking from it throughout the game.
And not only that, but like you mentioned, it's the break point, plus it basically have some of the block value off of it, so it's going to leak. And Warrior already kind of comes with a fridge in terms of their blocking capability. They have a lot of equipment blocks, so they have some resilience to them when it comes to sticking around and protecting life totals. A Control Warrior might very well be what people are looking at. I mean, I look at Decimator Great Axe, and the first thing I'm thinking about is like, why can't this be a Guardian weapon? And I know why it can't be a Guardian weapon. Like, I already am aware why it can't be a Guardian weapon. But we went from Winter's Wail to Titan's Fist, and then Decimator Great Axe gets printed, and I'm like, oh, this is like the next step. This is the next evolution from like the de-evolution to like coming back to some sort of greatness. It's a Decimator Great Axe. Do you play a lot of Warrior? Is that a hero that, does Decimator Great Axe actually put Warrior onto, into people's field of vision, but maybe from that control lens? Is it something that is viable?
Yeah, so I mean, I played Warrior before Dash came out, right? So back in Welcome to Wraith, Warrior was kind of my go-to hero, and even after Arcane Rising and Crucible, I won a road to Nats with Warrior back in the kind of Dash heyday as well. So I've always had a soft spot for Warrior. I've always enjoyed Warrior. When Oldham came out, I never looked back. But up until that point, Warrior was absolutely one of my heroes. So this has got me looking back. Screwing around with the cards again and thinking about how a kind of mid-rangey, more Oldham style Warrior deck can work.
So the other thing about this Dusk Till Dawn as an expansion is, again, this is a what is it called? A supplementary set or something like that. I forgot what the along those lines.
It's supplementary set, yeah.
Now, the supplementary sets are typically geared towards basically giving a little injection, a little bit of adrenaline to everything, all the classes out there. Everybody gets a little bit of help. It sort of gives, shakes the snow globe for the first week and seeing where everything falls. But this one feels different. This is kind of different than Crucible. It's different than Dynasty or what was the other one? Everfest and whatnot. Because it seemed like those other sets was like an equal share into the ether out there of giving every class, every talent a little bit of help. This one is very, very much leaning towards this light versus shadow narrative. And now this is definitely going to be tied to the overarching lore and the development of lore within LSS. I can see on my end here why this is kind of necessary, because you're kind of, at the same time that you're releasing cards, you're also telling a story. LSS looks to be turning Flesh and Blood into a bigger IP, much like Magic does this, where there's always companion books or whatever. Is this, in your opinion, a good move where they're focusing on certain aspects? Because a lot of people are saying, hey, Light, Shadow, Runeblade, Illusionist, we're getting all that. But, like, where's the help for Mechanologist? Where's my help for Brutes? Where's my help for, or maybe not Brutes, but, like, where's my help for whatnot? Is this the right approach here?
Yeah, I was very, very hopeful that I would at least get, one mechanologist like dash specialization or something like that at least in the set they'd do a specialization for, for the majority of the heroes or something. But yeah, looking like I'm not going to get that. So yeah, I'm definitely on the side of the fence of, this sucks. I don't get anything for, the deck I was working on or that you'd always be hopeful with a new set that you'd get something for, right? But yeah, like I think this is a good focus point. I think that focusing on a couple of the heroes that haven't gotten support in a while, or a couple of classes, and going back to Light and Shadow, especially when Prism got Living Legend and Chain got Living Legend and stuff. So I think this is if this shows how they're going to approach these supplemental sets in the future, I think this is a good way to go. And as much hurt as I am that I'm not getting that one single dash card is all I wanted.
I was surprised.
I do. Yeah.
Like that's the thing, right? Because when supplemental sets are usually announced, everybody, and it started off that way, right? Like we got Starstruck, we got all, we got all the specializations, the Lexi specialization, the this, the that. We got a whole bunch of cool stuff, and everybody was kind of waiting and saying, all right, cool. Everything's going to get a little bit of help. Obviously, we're going to get new heroes, but it seems like it is absolutely this like mini like Monarch 2. Like this sort of sequel to it. But kind of rewinding back to the grander scheme of things, LSS has always been waving the flag about being a, player first, experience first, whatnot. But as cool as Dusk Till Dawn looks and as cool as it is, if their direction, their North Star that they're kind of following and, cutting through the water, if that North Star is guiding them, that's guiding them is more geared towards stuff like lore building, world building, etc. Do you feel like maybe that they're going to start falling behind on just putting out good sets? And I'm not saying that this set is bad or anything, but like this, to me, the symptom is that of a set like this is more so telling of they have grander visions in mind of, books and other and developing the IP. But at the same time, we haven't gotten any of that, right? Because we don't have books or shows or merchandise or video games or anything like that. What is your take on that? Like, do you feel like LSS is sort of starting that encroaching into these other genres, these other areas of merchandising and expansion of the IP?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's got to have always been the plan, right? Like if we see the lore book that was sent out to retailers at the start, like how in depth that is. Obviously, years has been spent on developing that lore and the storyline behind it. So I think that was always the plan. It's just they were trying to do a whole lot quickly, right? From a player point of view, I'm not concerned that they're seeming to have a bit more focus in that area, because like ultimately it is two different teams, right? They've got the creative team and they've got the development team, right? So those teams aren't really, like they are completely divided, right? So it's not like if the creative team are like, focusing more on lore, it doesn't mean that the development team are going to focus less on playtesting the cards, right? So from that standpoint, I'm not worried that one takes away from the other. But it does seem like those teams are expanding and they're putting more focus into both of those areas, which I think ultimately was always the plan, and is a great thing for the game. I think, the storyline and the lore and stuff attracts a lot of people, and especially if they're, as they go into this more, casual focus as well, around player versus environment and stuff like that. I think it's going to be really important to shore up a lot of the storyline.
The other aspect of this is with these grander schemes and these bigger, things on their mind, there's still people out there wondering like where the hell Worlds is going to be, and I'm not.
I'm one of those people.
Trust me, as am I. A lot of people keep bothering me and sending me DMs like, "Hey, can you just give me like a hint?" I was like, "Dude, if I knew, I would tell you. I legitimately do not know." But we're approaching on it, and this has to be a concern. Like you said, it's a concern for you, but at what point do we just kind of take a step back and say, you're into your like fourth year of being a major player in the TCG world. These are not mistakes you should be making anymore. These are not things that, we're going to allow you to just say, oh, slight oversight on. And I get it. It's a volatile world out there, especially in Europe where they said it's going to be. We're at a point now where I think that sort of, Rubicon that you cross, a lot of people can't go back now. They're like, I can't go. Like, if I didn't know by July 1st, I can't go. And that is going to be the reality for it. What are your thoughts on this sort of this I don't call it radio silence, but that's to a degree what it is, because every day I see at least 5 to 10 tweets with worlds or DMs and stuff like that of people asking me when it is, and I have no clue.
Yeah, this is a sore spot for sure. I think we're past that point now. That we're in year 4, I think we're at the point where it's kind of unacceptable. If I'm completely honest, I want to be kind of harsh here. Like I get that there's gonna be things that happen, right? Venues might have fallen through. There might be like all of these behind the scenes stuff, and that this stuff is really hard. Like, we need to respect that, but LSS have kind of gotten to where they are off the back of being a very transparent company, and very just straight up, this is how it is, and just hard working. And I have no doubt in my mind that everybody behind the scenes is working their ass off to make this happen, but they need to give us a little bit more information, to at least say, hey, look, this is what's happened so far. This is, things are holding up. But we're expecting, we're going to announce it at this date, and then, at least set a date where they're going to announce it, and kind of be straight up with people. It's like, okay, yep, some unforeseen circumstances have happened. It's fallen off again. We're going to have to push out to this date now. But at least give people a date. At least tell people when you're going to know, and kind of respect your players' lives a little bit more. Because I agree with you. A lot of people, we've passed the point now where constantly other things are conflicting. And even for myself, like if I'd known about Worlds a month ago, there are multiple things I could have planned around Worlds. But now it's getting to the point where, like, if it's on, there are a couple of dates for me that if it's on, I just won't be able to play. I just won't be able to play Worlds. And if I'd known a month ago, I could have moved that around and definitely would be able to play. So I can imagine a lot of people are in that boat as well. I think, specifically because this has been a sore spot with LSS over the past couple of years, is like, things are announced a little bit too late. We're not given enough lead time. This needs to be the spot that they're, really focusing on and really making sure they've got it right, because we've given them a pass. We've given them a whole pass so many times in the last couple of years that it's kind of getting to the point where, they're just, they need to step up in this area.
And I'm not gonna sit here and sort of, I'm not trying to say that they don't care. That's absolutely.
Oh, no, they definitely care, and they definitely work their ass off. I'm definitely not saying anything like that. I believe that everybody in LSS works really hard, and they want this as much as we do. But there just needs to be more communication.
To me, it just feels like we came off of Baltimore. Baltimore was, in my opinion, Baltimore was a little bit of I don't want to say a do or die, but there was a lot at stake for Baltimore. PT Baltimore, after Worlds was left a lot of people wanting more. Left a lot of people, a little bit disappointed with how that happened. And that's not just the player base. I'm sure LSS feels exactly the same way. PT Baltimore was kind of their opportunity to say, hey, we can do this right. And I know there was a lot of hubbub about Baltimore. Trust me, I just watched the entire series of The Wire in the past 2 weeks I know, and I was like, Baltimore. I'm like, now I see, because people watched this amazing show, and now people understand that there's like 85 murders an afternoon in Baltimore. But that's that was definitely a dramatization. But Baltimore was for them a battleground on their own spot to sort of win back the trust of the player base that, hey, we can do tournaments of a grand scale, do it right. And even though Baltimore had a couple hiccups here and there, on the whole, I think that Baltimore was a big success. And after speaking to a lot of the people from LSS after that, they thought it was good too. And they kept reassuring and saying, dude, this is just like a quarter of what we want to do moving forward for these tier 4 events. But at a certain point, you could have the greatest circus in town, but if nobody can go to it, then who, it's like if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it exist, or did it even fall? Which is what Worlds might be. Worlds might be the best thing ever, but if a lot of people can't go because of the time frame here, then all it is just, a whisper in the wind, as it were. Like, okay, it sounds like it was a great thing, but who knows? I wasn't there.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. Baltimore, they whacked it out of the park. Baltimore was incredible. One of the best, event experiences I've ever had. So I think they did that they really, really stepped up from last year. But there was a lot of expectation and pressure as well, given they're only doing one Pro Tour and one Worlds this year, right? So they kind of had to get both perfect. They had to really step up in both, and I feel like the announcement around Worlds hasn't met expectation. So I agree. I think the event is going to be amazing, and I have no doubt that everybody behind the scenes is putting in a lot of work to make it incredible. But it's kind of all for nothing a little bit if a bunch of people can't go, and that's They miss out, and that'll just suck, to be honest.
Well, that's certainly it. And again, I'm coming from a point of privilege to the degree where there's a possibility I might be working it. I honestly don't know, but I want to go one way or another, and it's just I'm lucky enough that I don't have a 9 to 5 or a schedule that I have to respect. My schedule revolves around this industry, so I can make those last second decisions. But from a point of cost, from a point of opportunity, it's going to be difficult, because I don't know how many people out there are so excited to finally qualify for something like this. And if at the end of the day they can't make it because Johnson in accounting put in the time off for work, a week before you got to, then that can be problematic. Nonetheless, like you said, I think that they're certainly working hard on it. I just wish that this was a point that they had hammered out sooner than later. We're all waiting with bated breath, and sooner the better, I guess. But the other thing I want to get to, I know that I want to talk about PCG grading, as well as some of your Monarch draft strategies and such like that. But I just want to also talk a little bit about Flesh and Blood's future and the competition that has now essentially been on this constant rise and this constant, this slow trickle of like a new champion has entered the gauntlet, as it were, be it Lorcana, be it Star Wars Unlimited, One Piece. There's games like Alpha Clash, Battle Spirit Saga. Every month it seems there's a new card game that's being announced, and there's only so many hours in a day, days in a week, etc., for players to essentially split their attention. I know that a lot of players that I know very closely have, I wouldn't call it jump ship on Flesh and Blood, but they're playing games like One Piece because there's tournaments, there's support, there's communication, there's things like that, and now, I'm super excited for Star Wars Unlimited. A lot of people are on the Lorcana train as well. Flesh and Blood kind of found this lightning in a bottle at a right time, despite all the things that were working against it, to come out swinging, kick. Put the boot to Magic's ass when it comes to big events and broadcasting big events and sort of rejuvenating that whole part of it. Magic is now back to full force. I feel like Flesh and Blood came out swinging, awoken a dragon in Magic. Magic is back on the scene, hot, heavy, and really thirsty for blood. But at the same time, while they're staring down this reawakened giant, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's around the corner. I feel like they are in probably some of their more dire circumstances that they've been since maybe their first launch. Yeah,
that's fair. There are a lot of games coming out, and I think the landscape is changing a little bit, though. When I got into card games, I feel like everybody just played their game. They were either into Yu-Gi-Oh, or they were into Pokemon, or they were into Magic, and just played that. Nowadays, when I go to local gaming stores and I look at the community and stuff, so many people are into multiple games. It's kind of like, for PC gaming, for example, like you don't just play one game, do you? Right? Like if you're a PC gamer, there's usually a few different games that you'll play, but mainly maybe there's one game that's kind of your main or something that you focus a little bit more on, but then you have these side games as well. And I think that's really what the TCG industry is becoming for a lot of people. I think that these games like One Piece and Lorcana and stuff are doing amazing things for the industry, in that they're taking these quite normalized IPs and putting them into a card game form that didn't used to be normalized, and now it is becoming like that, right? Like I think it was really exciting for me to hear from like my nephews and stuff that are like 11, 12, 13, that like pretty much everybody they knows about Pokemon or has collected Pokemon cards, and like a bunch of them have played Magic Arena, and now some of them are collecting One Piece cards and stuff like that. Like it wasn't like that when I was at school, you know what I mean? Like card games were this kind of weird dungeony niche side thing, and D&D and all of this sort of stuff. It just wasn't normalized like it is today. And I think that these things like Lorcana and One Piece and stuff like that are really helping to push that narrative that card games are for everybody. I think that Flesh and Blood's position in it is like the thing that Flesh and Blood have going for it is they've created an incredible game and community around it as well, and organized play and that focus and stuff. Like, to be honest, they do it better than anybody else. Even these guys that have been doing it for 20 years or whatever, like LSS, I think put out the best experience, and I think it's the best game. So from a gameplay perspective, so I do think that these smaller IPs don't threaten Flesh and Blood to the extent that they help Flesh and Blood. I think that they introduce more people to this world and to this niche, and then those people, if they want to take the next step and they want to get, if they get that taster of organized play and stuff, and they want to get, kind of move on from there, Flesh and Blood is a perfect game to move into. It's just going to be important that LSS keeps capitalizing on that and make sure that the organized play structure is done really, really well, and that the game continues to be an incredible one.
I think that LSS would never be afraid of competition and growing competition to that degree. I mean, if they joined the fray amidst the worst aspects of COVID in a Magic-dominated arena without a digital client and came out better than they went in, like I think that's them saying, dude, we don't care about the competition because we basically cut our teeth in like the worst possible conditions. However, they do have to at least be cognizant of the fact that, like you mentioned, in the same vein that people might get turned towards a card game or getting interested in a card game because of an IP, for example, I don't know how many posts I've seen of people in Lorcana discussion groups saying, this is my first card game because I like Disney. Yeah. And yeah, you're right. This could just be like Lorcana could just be the gateway drug to bigger, better card games. And that is a player that otherwise would never have played or tried it that eventually might make that leap over. But at the same time, not all games are going to be simple and basic as Lorcana. Some of them will develop multiple layers as they continue to grow. And, a lot of people are already just kind of devout One Piece players because of the gameplay being simplistic yet layered. It's very strategic in that regard, but it's not Flesh and Blood in terms of so many decisions, so little variance that outcomes and are almost, I don't say predetermined, but are very much, if X player is playing X deck versus X player on this deck, it's probably an 80% sure thing that who's going to win that particular matchup. Nonetheless, I feel like they still have to sort of at least be wary of the fact that with that many landmines out there, they got to tread softly. They can't mess things up anymore. They, like you said, like those hall passes are kind of expired, and they're leaning on perhaps their last one, and worlds can be a pretty devastating thing if they don't pull that rabbit out of their hat in short order. Any of these games like kind of catch your eye at all?
Like a little bit here and there. Like ultimately, I think great. Like One Piece, I think will carry on for a little bit, but will eventually die off. Like, you know, there's only so much you can lean on a loved IP like this. And you know, to be honest, Bandai kind of have a bit of a history of they go hard in a game for a little while and then they move on to another one. You know, so Bandai games generally don't last out. So yeah, I don't have huge hopes into the future of One Piece, but I think it's really good right now. Grand Archive is one that I think has some serious potential. It has, you know, one of the better resource systems that I've experienced in a card game. It's got depth, but it's also, you know, a little bit simplistic. It's kind of gotten the balance quite right. And they seem to be doing some really good stuff with OP as well. So I think that one's probably got some of the higher potential. And then, Sorcery's coming out later this year as well. I don't think that's going to be the same sort of thing. I don't think there's going to be a big OP push or whatever, but I think that might be a really fun side game for people, you know, something that you just play kitchen table sort of thing, or is kind of like, you know, what Commander is for Magic or whatever, like for other gamers, is that, you know, maybe they play a little bit of Sorcery on the side for a bit of fun and a bit of nostalgia and a bit of, you know, just cool stuff. So I think that might be really good in a very different way than Flesh and Blood's really good. So those are kind of the ones that I've got my eye on a little bit more at the moment. And then we'll kind of see. I mean, there's so many, right? So
Yeah.
I don't have a huge amount of time to like try them all out and play them and stuff. But I do try to at least play a welcome deck thing of most games. You know, I do try to play the very basic level or starter deck level of most games to get a feel of how it is, and just because I'm so entrenched in this industry. Grand Archive is probably the one that stood out to me the most.
No, I don't blame you. I mean, I've played Grand Archive. It's got demoed to me. I played a round of it. I actually won my first game. My first game of Grand Archive, I actually beat somebody, which was quite fascinating. I was like, oh, I see what this is. I see what we're doing here. And it was a pretty fun experience, not to sell it short at all. It was great. The one game that I am so excited for, you probably can guess, it's Star Wars Unlimited, man. Like,
I would guess that. Yeah.
Woo! I'm not gonna lie. Look, I read the rules. I saw some of the cards. I got in touch with them. I have another podcast. My other podcast is called Wampa Radio with Charmer. We do Star Wars Unlimited. Yeah. Played some demos. The game is pretty solid, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. Plus, it's Star Wars, dude. Like, I don't even care what it is. Whenever you can have, like, an X-Wing blow up a TIE fighter, and that's because I decided that makes me feel like I'm, like, a game that I want to play. But that's a whole other discussion. What I do want to dig into is that big, ripe Matt brain of yours. One of the questions that we received was from Hugo Ribeiro, saying, since you won Monarch Draft Calling in 2021, did you find anything new about the format? Because in Fab with Matt, you talked about this approach of forcing and sending strong signals early, but not being married to your picks, jumping over if needed. Has that changed at all in terms of Monarch? Everybody is getting their grubby mitts on Monarch Draft now, and because of COVID, that was something that a lot of people couldn't do. So how do you feel about the strategies, and maybe walk us through some of those basic strategies for people who might not be prepared for Monarch Draft?
Yeah. So I've been doing quite a bit of Monarch draft lately as well, which has been a lot of fun. I love Monarch. I think it's still probably my favorite draft format, and I think it is. I think it is quite different to draft formats like Tails and Uprising and Outsiders. So I think people will quickly realize that this is a very different draft experience. In that, yeah, like there is so much more depth to the actual drafting than these other draft sets, in that the signals are so important. It's so important to be sending them and reading them, and getting them right. And the good thing about this draft format and why I quite like it is you don't have to get married early. There has been multiple drafts where I have chosen my hero, in pack 2 at some point. There was a draft I did the other day where I literally chose my hero at the end of pack 2. What other draft format can you do that without having an absolute train wreck, right? So this is a draft format where it's like quite easy to stay shadow or stay light, but also stay between like Bolton and Chain because of like all of the generics and Belittle and stuff like that, and then also stay between Levier and Prism because of like some of the bigger cards and other generics there as well. So you can actually stay open between 2 classes or even 3 classes if you're staying open between like the 2 Shadow and then maybe like Bolton or Chain or something like that, for quite a while, and really get a good gauge on the signals of the table. Like I find that a lot of drafts by the end of pack 2, I can generally pick what's around the table, whether it's like 3 Boltons, 1 Prism, 2 Chain, 2 Levy, or something like that. Like you generally have a pretty good idea of where the mix is, and a massive amount of the drafts actually come down to 2-2-2-2. Like the last 4 Monarch drafts I've done have all been 2-2-2-2. So it's getting to the point where more than 50% of the drafts I'm doing is like, yeah, people are in the seats that they're supposed to be, and they end up in the classes that they're supposed to be in. And I think that is because you can lean around so much. But at the same time, like the signaling is really, really strong. And really important because the pack breakdown, right? Like there are 3 class shadow cards and 3 class light cards in each pack. Then there's an equipment, 2 rares, a foil, and 5 cards that are between generic, shadow, or light. Okay, so the shadow light class cards, you'll either get 2 Levier cards and 1 chain card, or 2 chain cards and 1 Levier card in each pack in the class slots, or you'll get 2 Prism cards and 1 Bolton, or 2 Bolton and 1 Prism, right? So in the 2 Bolton, 1 Prism, if you take the Prism card, you send a very clear, strong signal that you have taken a Prism card, and that doesn't mean that you have to end up in Prism, but it means that like the people you're passing to are probably going to stay away from Prism, which means that if it is open coming the other way, you can jump in and then be in a really, really good spot. So I find the best strategy is to send a couple of strong signals of where I'm looking to jump early, and then if those are open, I can jump in and be pretty comfortable that I've sent signals that will keep the others away from those if I do jump in. But it also means that I take a good mix of kind of generic cards and shadow / light cards so that I can still be a little bit open and end up where the people passing to me are putting me into as well.
That's under the impression that you're drafting with people who know what the hell they're doing. I remember, true story, I'm not even joking. Dude, it wasn't even it wasn't a flesh and blood draft, but I was drafting Magic way back when, and the person passing to me was on their phone with like the like buy list or like the value of the cards and looking at the stuff and being and I'm like the epitome of rare drafting, like the absolute epitome. I'm like, what are you here for? Like, what are you here for? And it's like, I just threw down $10 and I wanted to leave with like 13. Like, that's basically what they wanted to do. They want to spend an hour and a half making $3, So it's like, no problem. You make your $2 an hour. I'm going to draft some cards here. But I get what you're saying here. Like, what you're like, you basically illustrated it perfectly, which was in that slot of 3 light cards, three class light cards. Let's say it's 2 warrior, 1 prism, 1 illusionist. If you yoink that card, that illusionist card, you've signaled to the person you're passing to that that's what you're on and to lay off of it to a degree. But also, at the same time, you're not seeing dividends of that until the cards come back your way. Is it not too risky to a degree if you're playing in a casual pod, let's say, or if there's players who are, not necessarily high tier or high caliber, where they might not be paying attention to that? Like, at a certain point, you have to also, I guess, take into account the skill level of the pod you're with, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, people can always suicide bomb you, right? Like, that's just part of card games. But I think that the bigger thing isn't like the bigger thing is just working out what the other people are doing, right? Like, it doesn't matter too much if they're not reading your signals, as long as you're reading the signals coming your way. That's the important part. So, like, by sending those signals, yes, you're sending clear signals that that's where you want to be, but you're still very open to switching into anything that you need to be in. And I think what's really important and a key thing about this draft format is there's so many more playables. So people have gotten very used to uprising and outsiders, where like you end up close to a 30 card deck. In Monarch, you usually have a few more cards to give, right? You can usually get, it's not hard to get a 35 card deck if you start in a class and you're able to stay in that class, right? So in that same vein, it's quite easy to switch over. So if you're, you can give up 3 picks from your first, 7 picks if you need to in order to switch over a class, and you'll probably still get 30. You should still get a 30 plus card deck as long as that's the class that you're supposed to be in. Like, as long as that's the class that's open. So I feel like at least in this draft format, you can sacrifice a little bit, a few more cards, and you can stay open. And the important thing is being in that class that others aren't in. I generally, if you're the solo in one class, in one hero, you're generally just going to win the draft. Like, I think, or you've got such a better chance no matter which class that is. So my aim, if I'm ever in a draft that's not 2-2-2-2, my aim is to be that solo. If somebody's 3 in a class and there's 2-2 in others, I want to be that final class. And if I have to give up 5 picks to be that, I'll give up 5 picks to be that, right? That's very much what happened in my calling top 8. I jumped into chain and ended up being the solo chain at the table. Like, I'd already passed clear signals for both Prism and Bolton, and there were a lot of really strong Prism and Bolton cards, so I knew that there was going to be quite likely more than 2 Prism/Bolton players. There was going to be 3 of one of those, and I worked that out reasonably early in pack 1, so I was like, okay, I want to figure out which shadow hero is the one that there's only going to be one of, and I want to try to be that one. So and then when it works out, the decks are incredible. So
all things considered, in an even field, let's say it is 2-2-2-2, is there one hero that might just have like a marginal edge altogether?
Maybe Bolton, but it all depends on how many V for the Vanguards are opened in those 24 packs, right? So V for a Vanguard is the big thing there. Like, if a Bolton deck's got a couple of those, it'll probably be the most powerful deck. But I think all the classes are pretty even. Like, it is really close. Chain is a lot harder to play than the other classes, so I think Chain does a lot worse in this draft format than the other classes, simply because it is a very complex puzzle to put together. And if you make one wrong misstep, you're gonna fatigue yourself, or you're gonna blood dead out yourself. You're gonna put yourself in a spot where they can turn and attack your resources. So I think Chain loses a bit more than the other three heroes, mainly because because of player error, because of play mistakes, because it is really quite hard to play. But I think ultimately, if you've got the best players in the world drafting it, I think all four are really, really close in power level, and the only one that might be slightly better is Bolton.
I feel like there's a certain reason where if you're up against a player that you think is sort of is kind of giving off the vibes that they are not comfortable with playing Levia or Chain, is just turtling up the best option and let them kill themselves to a degree, be it through blood debt or decking themselves out. Like I've decked out really good Chain players, but it was always exceptionally challenging. But when it comes to playing a Chain player who's just sort of figuring things out or might not have a lot of reps on the hero, and that could very well be the case, because Chain, for a lot of players who are getting into the game right now, Chain, they might have heard it because it was the boogeyman for so long. It was arguably one of the best decks to ever exist. They hear about it. They see its living legend. They might start grabbing it because, hey, I watched a YouTube video or two. I think I know what I'm doing. I feel like just turtling up and fatiguing an average Chain player. Like, one of the best questions you can ask them is like, "Oh, when did you get into the game?" And if they said, "Oh, I got in at Uprising," you're like, and you're playing Chain. Ooh, baby, we're fatiguing you. That is the way we're going. Like, is that a viable option against those two decks?
Such a shock.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, like, look, we're all out there to win this event. I'm just saying, like, sometimes you're just doing a little detective work. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, yes, to a degree, but you still need to have the deck to be able to do it. So, like, if you've got a deck with a bunch of block 2s and only 30 cards, like, that's not a strategy you can take, because even an inexperienced Chain player will probably be able to, push enough through you. As long as their deck's good. So it kind of depends. But yeah, if you have like a Bolton or Prism deck with like a bunch of block 3s and very few no blocks, and you have a 33 card deck or whatever, then yeah, that strategy will work the majority of the time if the Chain player doesn't know how to like perfectly sequence their deck. But yeah, it's still contextual. If you have too many block 2s, you can put yourself in a pretty poor spot doing that as well. So
cool. All right. Now we'll pull the plug on the draft strategy there and the flake school of sharking people. It's just not what I'm trying to do. I don't think nobody
get into Monarch draft though. Definitely, I will say to everybody, like, even if you're not playing nationals, Monarch draft is a lot of fun. It's one of the funnest ways to play this game, in my opinion. So, if you have an opportunity to do a few drafts, get into it. It's deep, it's complex, but it's also really, really fun.
True story. Monarch draft was the first ever limited armory I ever did in my entire life. The first ever event I ever did was a CC. I think it was like just a CC armory. Played Katsu, got my ass beat, and then the next time I think I went 2-1 in a Monarch draft, and I felt like a boss because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I had no clue. I think I was playing Levia, and that was it.
Okay.
Yeah. It was great because I remember I was playing against a very prominent Canadian player who I don't think really plays anymore. Nonetheless, I was playing and I was new, and I was like, again, I'm a seasoned card player. I kind of know what I'm doing, but I was still very new to the game. And I think I was on Levia, and I think I had a couple things in my Banish Zone. I was going to eat Blood Debt. I had like 12 health left. They presented 10 or something like that, and I was like, yeah, I'll take it. They're like, are you sure? I was like, yeah. They're like, I probably suggest that you block this. I'm like, no, I'm cool. I'll take it. They're like, okay. They're like, I'm probably going to kill you next turn. And I was like, if you live, you very well might. And then I ended up winning on my next turn. And they're like, and they were not happy. They were not happy. Got him. Absolutely. All right. Let's talk, my friend, about your I don't want to call it your side gig, because I think this is pretty much who you are now, which is PCG Grading, which is Premier Card Grading. That is a Matt Rogers endeavor, right? You and I have talked about this almost every single time you've been on the show. And every single time you've been on the show, you've brought me a little gift, either some little piece of information, some major announcement, little bit of a tease here or there. And before we even get into it, Matt, almost every question, the majority of the questions I got were in all caps, from Greg at Darth Prentice. Fab Slabs when? Exclamation point, question mark. From Clark Jensen. Hey, Fab Slabs? Like, when's that happening? And how will it work with double-sided marvels and stuff like that? I don't want to get into it much. You take the floor. Tell us what the hell's going on with these Fab Slabs.
It's all around. They're never actually coming. Yeah.
Are you? Yeah, like Worlds.
Yeah, so Fab Slab, yeah, it's been a lot of fun, but it's also been very trimming.
That is a very, very one-sided admission to make. Yeah, this has been fun. Meanwhile, everyone else is just kind of scratching their head saying, what the hell are you doing?
Sitting there like, come on, man.
Yeah.
No, it's taken a long time to develop this, but we're there. So we've been, designing and in development of this Fab Slab for about a year now. It's gone through multiple molds, countless molds and different testers and stuff like that. And we've been really trying to kind of tweak small things and get everything perfect. I was absolutely dedicated from the start that I want to put out a hugely superior product here, and it needs to be, top of the range. It needs to fulfill everything that I want it to fulfill, and I've been very very focused on that. So we've changed a lot and we've done a lot of tweaks, and I think we've got to a pretty much a finished product now. So as is tradition in sharing little things with you, I've brought with me a Fab Slab.
What? Is this a world exclusive? Is this the first time we get to see a finished Fab Slab?
This is the first Fab Slab in existence right now. So it's still not entirely finished just because the label's not correct. We don't have the new labels that fit the Fab Slabs yet because we've just got our first trial run of the Fab Slabs and have confirmed it. This is what it's going to be, and we're probably not going to change it anymore. So now we'll print the labels for them. So I've got a Codex of Frailty here that is completely encapsulated and Fab Slabbed up. So I'll show you that one right there. So as you can see, it's only slightly bigger than the card. So it's more along the lines of a snap. You got your little PCG down at the bottom there. And then, this is fully encapsulated.
Put it a little bit more towards the center if possible, right in the center of the screen. Yeah, because there we go. That's perfect right there. Yeah, okay, show it off.
So this is how a Fab Slab will be. It'll be, in a case that's just slightly, this is the Fab Slab, right? So this is the case, just slightly bigger than the card. The label will be on the back. At the moment, I've just used a tester label here that we've cut so that it's the right size for this. So this isn't the actual label. The label will look like this. This would be the actual label for it. So Codex of Frailty there. Sorry, that's...
it's all good. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. So that's how the label will look. So there'll be the QR code on the front there. There's the subgrades. There's the card. There's everything like that. And that label will be showing at that point. So, upper middle there in the case. So you're still able to see all your corners and relevant information there as well. It'll have the QR code and all of the information, just on one side of the label, obviously, because you can't see it on the other side like our other cases. The sides of the label you'll see here will be gold on the sides here, and that will actually show through ever so slightly on the sides here as well. So when this Fab Slab is in play, you'll be able to see a little strip of gold on the sides that will indicate that that's a 9.5, or a strip of silver that will indicate that that's a 9. And then you turn it over and you have all of the actual grades for it there as well. So
that's pretty neat. I like that.
It's really cool. So I'm super happy with this. This end product is it's going to be really good. And I'm excited to actually get to play with these and not have to play with these clunky slabs like I always have been. So.
Yeah, it's hilarious because like when you play, it looks less like a game, like a board state, and more like an advertisement, like kind of like a garage sale of all the stuff that you've got going on there. I always say my favorite line to say is that whenever you're playing on camera with all of your stuff there, I always mention about how if there's ever any indication of Matt Rogers' humility, he only graded his cards in 9.5, rather than a perfect 10. So he's a citizen like us, he's not royalty just yet, but
yeah. I mean, to be honest, most of the Oldham equipment I played were 9s actually. There was only a couple of 9.5s, but I don't specifically look for the mintest cards or whatever. I get what I get. I open what I open in a box or whatever. I submit it to grading. The graders don't know that they're my cards, right? So all of the submissions at PCG are all by barcode, so nobody knows whose cards they are, and they just get what they get, and I just play with them. I'm just I'm not trying to get them all unified or trying to get the most perfect cards or anything like that. Just playing with whatever I open.
I get in trouble for showing up with like whiteboarded equipment. I remember going and playing in a tournament and I had whiteboarder bullseye bracers, and they're like, "Get that out of here!" Like,
I can't play that one anymore.
I can't anymore. But they're like, "Let's hook you up with a real one." I was like, "No, this is by choice, man. Like, I love it. Like, I have right here, I did a giveaway in the other podcast, the Star Wars one, where I gave away a Millennium Falcon, and this is a whiteboarder card as well, dude. Like, it's just, whiteboarder is the way to go. And right next to me here, there's why not? Let's just show this one there. That's my my foil Lumina Lance. It's beautiful, dude. I gotta say, like, all of the art from Monarch in foil and whatever was always beautiful, but I thought I lucked out, and I've only been able to spoil one legendary, which was for Outsiders. I got to spoil a legendary equipment. This is the first time, or that was the first time. And when they sent me this, I was like, I have no idea what I'm getting. Maybe I'm getting a legendary, this and that. And they're like, no, you don't have a podcast anymore. You're a scrub. We're sending you a Majestic. And I am so happy that I got one of the nicest and powerful ones. And you know what Lumina Lance does, right? Like, what is your evaluation of my spoiler card?
It's definitely interesting. That's the thing is, like, I'm not really seeing light. I'm not really seeing the light. It's like I don't really understand Prism yet, and I don't feel like, I'm not sure how she's going to be competitive. Like, it's such a disadvantage to start on 32 life.
I heard that someone booing Prism. Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's staff in the office that are obviously overhearing the thing and booing that I don't like Prism. We have a lot of passionate Fab players in the office here, so and there's obviously a passionate Prism fan over there. But yeah, like, I don't think Bolton gets enough, and I just don't really understand Prism. So I'm not sure how competitive the light heroes are going to be and how much play some of these light cards are going to see at the top level. But I'm completely prepared to be proven wrong. So yeah.
One more thing about your Fab Slab there is, I know that you and I, in discussion of the progress about the Fab Slabs and such, is that you didn't quite get the design you wanted. You'd get something back and it's like, you know what, this it's 98% there, and I'm not willing to just round up to 100. How many variations of that Fab Slab design did you reject before you approved this one?
Close to 10. Close to double digits. It's all just tiny, minute changes, but with every minute change, for the vast majority of them, you have to make a new mold, and so that takes weeks, and then the next sample run needs to be made and then sent to New Zealand and everything like that. So each of these changes do take quite a long time, some of them 6-8 weeks in totality to to get the next full sample ready to go. So I don't know exactly how many tweaks, but it was definitely quite a few. But yeah, I think it's worth it. I think, there are even, there's even like small things like how the card sits and what's kind of made here for the card to sit on, how the label sits against the card, how we open the slab, like if we need to crack a slab or whatever, like the ways, basically the pieces that are put here so that damage can't happen to the card if we want to open the slab. It's kind of countless, the amount of different things, because it was also down to fitting like every single or fitting the majority of deck boxes and stuff like that. Like we want these slabs to be easy to carry around, so it was shaving things off the top and off the sides and stuff and making it the right kind of thickness there as well, that you can get a full equipment set and everything that you need into a reasonable sized box. And then how they stack and how they're easy to be packed up again after you play, even if you want to like pack up all of your equipment and stack them on the top and then just slot them into a box without accidentally going doof and having all your slabs fall all over the floor, right? So
sure.
There's all sorts of little things like that like I need to get right, because if I don't put out a perfect product here, like that's it's my reputation and this whole year of work on the line here. Like I've put so much focus and work and attention into this that if we don't get it right, it was all for nothing. So I need to put out a perfect product that we've thought about everything on.
No, and it looks like you did a good job there. Again, the fact that they slot into the deck boxes, which is clutch, that's what everybody wants these days, especially for a game that starts with such high value cards on the table. Out of curiosity, cost of this, is that something that you've already knocked down and identified? Is this just a standard submission and an option, like I want the standard slabbing or I want the fab slabbing? What's the cost of, let's say, a standard turnaround for a single card evaluation into a fab slab?
Yeah, so I'm pushing pretty hard for it to be the same. I'd like it to be the same, but we've got PCG offices all over the world. We've got obviously like all of the margin considerations and everything, and the time, and these cases have cost a massive amount to develop. So I have to figure out how to kind of bake that into the margins there as well. So we haven't completely finalized that, but my utopia is that I can get to a justifiable figure that I can get to a point where I can justify it at the same price, and so that's going to depend also on demand and volume as well. Like with anything like this, if I can print enough of it, if people want it enough, if people go hard for Fab Slab, and I can print enough of it, I can get the per unit costing to a point where I can do that. So all of that math still has to be done now that now that we've kind of finalized it, and now that all the costs have been paid, and now that we've figured out kind of how many minutes are involved in the full process of grading and slabbing a fab slab. But what I'm thinking is, if we can't get it to the same price, what I'm going to offer in the fab slab is also an authentication service. So something that is cheaper and should even be cheaper than a normal slab, where people aren't actually getting the cards graded, they're just getting them authenticated. So basically you'd submit a card, we'd authenticate that it's real, we'd put it inside a fab slab, and we'd put an authentication label here rather than a graded label. So they won't get 9.5 or 10 or 9, they'll just get A for authentication and then the details of the card. So that's another service that I want to bring out with this if I can't. Probably either way, but a service for people that don't really care about getting their cards graded, don't really care whether it hits a 9 or a 9.5 or anything like that, just want to preserve their cards and play with them and keep them in the exact condition that they are forever. Then I think an authentication service will be the right thing for those people. So if I can't get the Fab Slab to the same price as a normal grade, I'll have an authentication service that's even less than a normal grade in its place.
When is this going to be available?
So we are launching at Worlds. So you have to ask.
So we don't know.
That's the other thing. I can't give a transparent date to our customers and our fans because LSS hasn't yet as well. So, but yes, we're going to be. We've decided and we've announced we're going to be launching the Fab Slab at Worlds this year.
Awesome.
So whenever or wherever
November.
that happens.
Just say November, dude, because I'm pretty sure it's all in November, as far as I am aware, which is not. But I think it's safe to say Fab Slabs November, dude. Let's just cross our fingers, man. I mean, like, at the very least, you know what? Let's just hang out in November, you and I. Let's just make that happen one way or another. Deal? Awesome. And you said that there's going to be a PCG office opening in Toronto soon.
What? I did not say that.
All right, I'll go back and I will. Do me a favor. Can you say Toronto real quick?
Toronto.
Perfect. All right, now I've got some creative. I've got some creative editing to do.
You're just gonna doctor this. Oh my god.
Ooh yeah, nice, perfect. Remember when you said this? No. Well, too bad you said it. Oh, Matt.
So wherever Worlds is, whenever it is, PCG is going to have a booth there. We're going to do on-site grading there. So we're going to send all of the equipment to the event. We're going to send a bunch of staff from New Zealand office, from the other offices, from offices all around the world to this event. And we're going to be launching Fab Slab there. And it's going to be a really, really special thing. So
beautiful. Well, I look forward to it again because... You know what's better than a white border Millennium Falcon from 1993 is a graded white border Millennium Falcon.
There we go.
The year is printed on here somewhere. 1995. I was wrong, dude. Did you just witness me doing the old man look? I looked over the top of my glasses. Yeah. Oh my god. I'm gonna edit that out because that makes me look really old. We're young, Matt Rogers. We're young and vibrant, and life is good. You hear that?
Yeah, that does. Yep. I don't go see a chiropractor for my sore back or anything like that.
Nothing like that, dude. I am so old that I've already gone through every chiropractor and like osteopath in my area, and I'm now running out of options. I'm at that point where when you get old and something hurts, that's just the way it is. It's just like, yeah, that'll happen now. So deal with it. Oh boy, I want to ask you one more thing before we cut you loose there, buddy. You know, there was always talk about the best players in the world, a Flesh and Blood Hall of Fame. I am such a fan of celebrating the people behind the games. You know, what Flesh and Blood outside of a rule book is really the community and the people who play it, right? Like that is the identity of the game and celebrating these people. If there was a Flesh and Blood Hall of Fame, you can pick 3 players and 1 community content, not like somebody who has an impact but is outside of like the competition thing. Who is in your first ballot? Who gets into that first wave?
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, Michael Hamilton and Pablo Pintor are definitely, are the 2 players. In terms of content creators, I'm not allowed to pick you, I guess.
Well, I don't think I deserve it, but you can absolutely, I
think I'd like to see Hayden Dale in there. I think in terms of from a content creator standpoint with Arsenal Pass and from a player standpoint that, he's somebody that's over this side of the world, so doesn't get anywhere near the opportunities, to play these bigger events, but is somebody that has done consistently well. He's won a calling, he's won nationals, he's top 8 at countless call-ins. He was 9th at Worlds, right? Like he consistently does well at the top level as well. And then he does so much for the game in the background as well through Arsenal Pass and everything like that. So he'd probably be my 3rd pick there.
That's a good option. I like those. Those are great names. I think that maybe a year ago, I think a year from now, a lot of people are going to be just insta-locking Brody Spurlock. I've been on the Brody train for about a year and a half. A year and a half ago, I was telling people, I'm like, dude, there's this kid, Okay, there's this kid who just picked up the game. You got to watch out for him because he picked up the game exactly, I think, a year and a half ago. He picked it up, I think, in like December of 2021, around that time or whatever, and then started winning armories and small tournaments. And I was like, yeah, he's going to be good. And then I met him. I'm like, yeah, and it's not just that he's good. He's a well-rounded, bright, polite, good person. And I'm like, and that's dangerous
for the game as well, for young people as well.
For sure.
Think,
and he had no team. He had his support network was just whoever thought he was a good kid and wanted to help him out. And that's the dangerous part, because if you're good and people like you, they are more inclined to help you succeed. And he is on this meteoric rise. I think that a year from now, people are going to be looking at Brodie Spurlock and saying, who the hell was Michael Hamilton? And that is not lowering the bar. Well, I know, and Michael Hamilton is going to murder me in my sleep. I am fully aware of his capacity for ruthless life ending. But that said, I think that Brodie Spurlock is going to raise the bar even more, because I think he now has the support and he's insulated by high talent, high caliber, not just players, but people. They are just out there to win. Seeing him and like Michael Fang together winning is such, it's when you're like, there's so many things wrong in the world, but those two winning makes me believe that there's justice in the world, like then good people succeed. And that is the feeling I get. And yeah, you can call me a Brodie stan, a Brodie Spurlock fan. Of course, I say it all the time. I am not hiding it. I'm on broadcasts cheering this guy on, being a complete homer when it comes to Brodie Spurlock.
You're literally one of those guys that's like, man, I watched Justin Bieber's videos on YouTube before he was big. Like, I made him.
I don't want to say I made him. But I was pumping this kid's tires, man, when he still had training wheels, is all I'm saying. All right. That's, and he has just, I don't want to say he's surpassed me, because I wasn't even on the freaking radar, but this kid is like taking this game to another echelon. It's no longer what deck is Michael Hamilton playing, what deck is Pablo Pintor playing, etc. It is, what the hell is Brodie Spurlock doing? And the scary part about that is it could be anything, and he'll just win. Like, all right. That said, last question: who's the scariest player in Flesh and Blood today?
Right now.
Nick
Butcher. Nick Butcher is the guy you don't want to sit across from right now. He's hot off a calling win. He is fully dedicated, and he has the hunger. He has the hunger to win. So if there's anybody I don't want to be sitting across from, and obviously I'm biased here. He's a mate and a teammate and testing partner and everything. So I'm just gonna be biased. But right now you don't want to be sitting across the table from Nick Butcher. He is the hunger to destroy you.
Is Team Dragon Shield still a thing, or how is that? What's the story with Team Dragon Shield?
So not really. So Dragon Shield didn't renew our contract. They're still considering it at the moment. For them, I think the FAB sleeves haven't gone very well for them, and they were kind of justifying the budget based off the ROI for that. And their accounts department has basically said this doesn't match up. Like there's not enough in the budget to keep doing this Team Dragon Shield thing. You guys need to cut that or cut something else or whatever. And we've just said that we're not too fussed either way. Like, we're happy if they need to cut us, they need to cut us. So they're still considering it at this point. In the meantime, Nick's taken a sponsorship-ish sort of deal with Arsenal Pass with Hayden. So I think he's going to be wearing Arsenal Pass shirts from now on, unless Dragon Shield come back and finalize a deal there. And then, I'm not fussed either way. So I might wear a Dragon Shield shirt, I might not. They might come back soon. They might offer us another deal, which we'll probably take or not or whatever. But yeah, Tarek, Isaac, and I are not really too fussed either way. We did the team thing because it was really cool and because we really loved the Dragon Shield brand and we were really happy to represent them. But it's got to work for them as well. So
yeah, my Hayden Dale with his Arsenal Pass money. I swear to God, I'm telling you. Instant Speed was like, reached out to Brody Spurlock. I'm like, dude, I will buy you 2 loaves of Wonder Bread every weekend that you play. And he said, no, thank you. I was like, okay, good, because I couldn't afford it anyways.
Yeah, you had to offer him the ham to go with it. You would have got.
Oh, I forget it. Are you kidding me? No. Protein, no. Protein. That's now we're talking like Wizards of the Coast money. Okay, like we're not there yet. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I gotta talk to Kayfabe Cards and be like, guys, you gotta hook me up here because Brody Spurlock wants some Black Forest ham, and I can't do it right now. Matt, it's always a pleasure, my friend, to have you on the show. And honestly, you were the second choice that I had to relaunch this show with. And
I was the third choice. You keep changing it. I don't know if I believe you anymore.
I have disowned Brian Gottlieb.
Okay, so
yeah, I'm giving him the "it's not you, it's me" routine. I rejected him. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I have some what's funny is I sent him a message to be like, dude, let me know when you're kosher to sort of start talking about Dusk Till Dawn development and stuff like that. Like once the cards are gone, because I want to throw you on the show. Mofo left me on red. Now keep in mind it's also a holiday weekend for them, so he's probably out there doing Brian Gottlieb related things or writing BNRs. But ultimately, I'm just going to take the high road and say that I rejected him.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. That's it, Maddie. Anything that you'd like to plug? Any last little parting shots that you got? Do you have a question for me? I like to offer a free pass to ask me a question at the end of the show. Why not?
Okay. What hero are you going to be playing for the next competitive season?
That is a good question.
And you're locked into it. Whatever you choose, you have to play because you're on the show.
Well, that's tough because I'm actually signed up for the calling in Cincinnati. I'm going to be playing, but I'm going to be in Ohio for 10 days for some realm-related events and some stuff going on over there. So I don't know because basically the realm said whatever cards you need we'll lend you while you're here. So don't worry about bringing cards here. So I'm spending the next little while kind of trying to play test and whatnot. I genuinely don't know. I'm not smart enough to break the mold on anything. I'm going to see which way the wind is blowing. And if somebody says, like, dude, it's Vincent or it's this, I'm just going to take whatever smarter people than me have designed. I rely on the big brains of smarter people like Tarek, like my buddy Mike Torek and stuff like that, who design really excellent decks. And then I go from there. One thing
fair enough.
I know where my strengths and weaknesses are. My strength is not in deck design and deck building. My strength is in like willpower and grind and learning. So I close the gap on that by them saying, this is what you should play. Here's why. Here's the matchups. And then I'm like, all right, you give me this, and I will teach myself to fish. You just you just give me the fishing rod and I'll figure it out. That's kind of my mojo here. But leaning Prism, I guess, because I have a lot of Prism reps in the past. But that's just me.
Cool.
All right, where can we get more Matt Rogers musings? Where's the best place to connect with Matt Rogers?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Facebook. Facebook is usually the easiest. I'm reasonably active on the Flesh and Blood fan page if you're on that. I barely ever log into Discord, so I think Brody messaged me at one point and was like, "Hey man, I sent you a message on Discord, like you haven't come back to me," and I like found it was like 2 weeks ago or whatever. I'm like, look, just don't message me on Discord. Like I log into Discord like maybe once or twice a month, maybe. So that's not the place to find me. Twitter, I jump on, maybe once or twice a week. You constantly push me to be more active there.
Yes, yes, I do.
Facebook's kind of my home.
Oh man. I was talking about, I think that frankly, despite the fact that you're talking about your chiropractors, I think the fact that you use Facebook more than anything is a bigger indicator of your age.
My age?
Yeah. Than the fact that it hurts when you sit down and get up. Like, that's not what it is. It's not back pain. It's Facebook usage. That's like rings on a tree. Like, you count those. How many times have you logged into Facebook today? Oh, you're this much old. I get you. Perfect. And every
But
Minions meme that you post multiplies your age by 2. That's how it goes.
I've never posted a Minions meme, so at least I'm good there. And then people are going to be able to find me at the Call in Birmingham. I'm going to be going to Birmingham. We got a PCG booth there, and we're opening PCG Germany literally the week after that. So I'm down there for that. So I'm going to be slinging some cards at Birmingham. So if you are at Birmingham, come say hi.
Beauty. All right, brother man. I love you dearly. Thank you so much for joining us on Instant Speed Podcast, dude.
Always, mate. Always my pleasure. And you look after yourself, mate.
I will. And to everybody else, to our sponsors at Kayfabe Cards, go to kayfabecards.com. Kayfabe, be who you want to be. And of course, to our Patreon supporters, keep in mind, we have a brand new Patreon page, patreon.com/instantspeed. If you were a supporter of us before, that is no longer active. We are brand new, relaunching. By all means, if you want to support us here at the show, that's the best way to do it. Thank you so much. And don't forget, you're not losing if you're learning. We'll see you next week on Instant Speed.
Well, I work